Republican Party are based around my family values as well. So I see a lot in common with that, so that's why I go with it.
Okay, Mr. Josh Robinson.
For me, I guess I grew up in a Republican family as well, but it's not really something that we ever talked about. I mean, it's not really something, I guess my parents wanted me and my brothers and sisters to make our own decisions about what we wanted to do. And so I guess when I was really 18, I decided to look into politics, and I kind of looked at, the Democrats and the Republicans, and I kind of felt like the Republican Party had more of my personal values of what I believed, more of, what I stood for. The Republican Party stood for that as well. And so that's really the main reason, as well as, right now, really, as far as the economy goes, I definitely agree with the Republican Party a lot more than I agree with the Democratic Party, as far as economic issues go. So that's the main reason that I'm a Republican now.
Miss Anya Arisohn, why blue? Why not? Excuse me. Why red? Why not blue? Why not be a Democrat? Why choose to be a Republican?
Well, in all honesty, I consider myself to be a communist all the way up until I turned about 20 years old and I joined the military. But I never wanted to share those views because everybody was accepted in Texas to be a Republican. And obviously communism is bad, so I couldn't participate with that. After September 11th happened and we invaded Iraq, I decided that I wanted to help out my country and do what I could. So I was 17 when I went to college, and then I enlisted about a year later, right after we invaded. And then I realized that, there's certain people that do certain things. I don't know, it's hard to explain. I guess getting the same amount of pay across the board for different types of tasks. And I learned that when I worked hard, I didn't get rewarded for it, like monetarily, as much as somebody else may have. And then so I started to look more into history, and kind of that went from there, I guess.
One of the things that I noticed that's common amongst everyone here in the room, I noticed all of you said that it's a thing about values. Our Democratic panel over here, you said that it's because of values, and our Republican panel over here, you all say it's because of values. If I may, what are these values to our Democratic panel? What are these values that the Democratic Party has that you hold so near and dear to your heart that you chose to go blue?
I'll take that one first. Mine is basically the stance on educational funding right now. That is a single major interest in my life, particularly. When it comes to funding education, I believe you need to fund it. It's essential. If we don't have an educated workforce in our country, our economy is not going to develop the way it needs to. And there are examples of this, various ones. Tennessee, 20 years ago, the state, major funding as far as education goes. They really invested in their education system. As of today, the recession, it hasn't been as hard on them. Not saying it hasn't been difficult for the state of Tennessee. Of course it has. The economy's rough on everybody right now. And I don't think one single person, party, or particular individual is going to have the right answer for it. That's a huge, complicated situation. It's going to involve a lot of compromise on both parts. But when it comes to education, that's my major issue. That's why.
Mr. Brett Johnson, what are these values that you say hold the Democratic Party so near and dear to your heart?
I think that for the Democratic Party as a whole, the main values that it comes down to in just about every policy that they promote is the promotion of equal opportunity, not like a lot of people say as the stereotype of socialist, as everyone gets the same thing no matter how hard you work. It's more of let's all give us a chance, at least lean towards the chance of being able to have the same starting point. And then however hard you work or however lazy you are, you reap the benefits of what you put into your work. And I think that that's kind of the values that I hold as a Democrat and that many Democrats hold, is that we want to make sure that all Americans, as I believe our founding fathers wanted, that we all have the same opportunities to prosper in a global economy.
Okay, let me switch over here to our Republican panel real quick. Mr. Josh Robinson, you said the same thing. You said the word values, that there are certain values that the Republican Party has that holds near and dear to your heart. If I may, sir, what are those values?
Okay, some of the values, I guess, would definitely be the Christian values that the Republican Party generally represents, and then as well as the capitalistic values as far as if you go to the economy, kind of a free market approach to the economy more of than a I guess a socialist approach to the economy. Definitely letting the market do what it's going to do. I think history has proved that is going to work out better than a socialist system would work out. And so I think with those two things, those are the main two issues with me.
Okay, Mr. Tyler Suits.
I have to agree. Actually, that was about the same exact topic I was going to refer to. Other than that, just the equal opportunities, I completely agree with. I think that everybody does have the right to get those opportunities. It's just they shouldn't be given to you. You should earn them. And I feel like sometimes that isn't happening anymore. I think a lot of people are taking advantage of the system, which in essence can be true and false. There's a lot of people who need help and should get it, but a lot of times there's a lot of people who just don't need it and they take it anyways.
I was gonna say, my mom and my grandmother, they worked hard all of their life, and when they needed something, it was, my mom had to fight for years and years and years to even have health care or even be taken care of, or and she still has to fight even after she's fought the system. She's tired. So I don't totally agree that on a lot of things, but I really hate that people who need it does seem to be this, but there's a lot of things that we could do too. I didn't get to really say. A lot of people probably didn't hear me because I got a million text messages that said you couldn't hear what I said earlier. But I just want to support somebody who looks back at me and gives me an opportunity to love who I want to love, to care for what I want to do, but do it within reason. I think that a lot of times Republicans say, well, if this is going to happen, then the world's just going to end, and it's going to be horrible, and this is God's going to punish the nation because whatever. But I don't believe in any of those type of things. I just want to be able to be given a fair chance and to be able to do those things. But I just hate that for the people who really do need help and support and things, sometimes it can go to both ways, because a lot of the people that I've talked to and seen aren't so much Democrats and aren't so much Republicans. It turns it back to just being Americans and who actually needs those availability of healthcare or whatever, or taking advantage of the system type things. I think that I think when it boils down to it, both parties could be just as guilty.
Let me ask you all this. Did you become Democrats and did you become Republicans simply because of familial influences from your family, or because you were raised in a Democratic household and you just said, well, okay, I'm going to go ahead and be a Democrat, or because you were raised in a Republican household, I'm going to go ahead and be a Republican? Or was it an independent decision, was it an independent choice that you chose to make? I see some heads nodding yes. You said it was an independent choice?
Yeah, for me it was an independent choice. I grew up in a very apolitical, just kind of work and get through life and make ends meet kind of family. So we weren't very focused on politics. So I kind of took my journey on my own. And like I said earlier, I sought out both parties and I listened and I made the decision for myself, which one associates with my values. And if I plan on pursuing a career or a future, at least in the political process, how do I think I could best govern the population that I would be representing? And I made that decision to go with the Democratic Party based on, like we said earlier, a lot of the values that the Democratic Party has.
Jason A. Sumner?
I was raised, both of my parents were Republicans, and I come from a Republican household. That's just the way it's always been. But, growing up, I went to school. The environment I grew up in, I'm from Atlanta, I'm from the metro area, so there's not one demographic, there are multiple demographics represented, and that area particularly is influenced heavily by the Democratic Party. You have that in urban areas. But coming to Jacksonville State University, I really made that decision to move into an affiliation with the Democratic Party here in Alabama, and the reason being, I looked at the issues on both sides. I looked at my personal opinions and my personal beliefs on certain items and issues, and it just, to me, it made sense to move with the one that put me, in line. And honestly, I don't line up 100% with the Democratic Party, nor do I with the Republican Party. To me, it's not about that. It's just about where I stand on those certain issues. Fiscally, I'm conservative. I don't believe in spending money we don't have. However, on some of the social issues, I'm a little liberal on some of those. I'm conservative on others. There's a stereotype that goes in. I know we're going to get into that later, but That's the thing. When you ask somebody about their political affiliation, they're not ever going to line up completely with one side or the other. You do the best you can with what you're given. The majority of my issues, the majority of my beliefs placed me with the Democrats, as opposed to with the Republicans. So
I want to switch over here to Mr. Kenneth Smith Jr. Kenneth, you said you grew up in a house of a family full of Republicans, and you decided to be the one blue dot in a red pond. How were you able to, I guess, counteract those Republican thoughts and choose to be a Democrat?
Well, I'm not like anyone else in my family. I've actually the only person, and I don't mean this derogatory towards anyone in my family, but I'm the only person to graduate high school. I'm the only person to go to college. So, I just have different views. I've gotten out in the world. I've been able to travel, and it kills me that my family hasn't been able to do that as well. I'd love to take my mom places. I'd love to do things with her. I say my mom a lot, and you'll probably hear me keep referring to my mom because she's a single parent. I'm the only child. But my family is diehard Republicans. I can tell you. I mean, they are just go hard. Go home. They went hard with the Republicans. We can't even have a conversation. When the presidential debate was on the other night, I stayed in my room, and they they were in the other part of the house. But for me, it was just about a choice about. I've gotten out. I've seen people, gay, straight, black, white, who One day, I was actually at Walmart, of all things, checking out, and this lady, I cut her off, and I didn't mean to, and she was a black lady, and she said, you did that just because I was black. And I said, why would I do that? I said, ma'am, let me ask you a question. I said, I see that you have a ring on your finger. I said, I would take it that you're married. And she said, yes. And I said, well, you have more rights than I do, or my friends do, because you're able to marry who you love. I said, so why would I choose to cut you off? And that shut her up very quick. So, it just, for me and my views, is totally different than my family's. Sometimes I have to stay locked in my room, especially on nights like presidential debates. But we all come back and we form, and we're a family, and we're Americans at the end of the night, and we still love each other.
Is that fair? I'm speaking to everyone now. Is that fair that Kenneth, for instance, says he has to stay in his room during the presidential debates? He can't even enjoy the presidential debates as a family unit. Is that fair that he should have to stay in his room and kind of be cut off from the rest of his Republican family, or why can't they enjoy it together as one?
I think for one thing is, since politics is such a touchy subject for most people, that's just the sad truth of what that is. But definitely, especially during presidential debate times, I know, Brett is in my fraternity, and we can't watch presidential debate together either, because we'll just sit there and say, see, I told you, no, you're wrong. So, that's just one of those things. But after the presidential debate, me and Brett will have a discussion about it, and kind of, set aside, we're not going to argue with each other, we're just going to talk to each other about it. Sometimes it does turn into an argument, but it's all in good fun. Do I think that's fair? No, but I just think that's just the way that people are. People have their beliefs, and they just believe so, I guess, die hard on those beliefs that sometimes it's hard to put aside your differences and kind of see where the other person's coming from.
And from a historical aspect, just to throw in on this, George Washington, when he left office from his presidency, said 3 things. He said, number 1, avoid foreign conflicts, foreign entanglements. They'll drag this country in. Avoid that. And he referred to Europe, so at that time, static foreign wars. The second thing he said is, remember to always peacefully, voice your opinion. You have the right to freedom of speech. If you don't agree with something your government's doing, speak up. Take to the streets peacefully, and, let the government know, I don't agree with this. And thirdly, avoid political factions, or what we know today as parties, because they create a divisiveness in this country. A house divided will not stand. We know this to be a fact. So we have to look at it. And in our country, having a 2-party system, they actually check each other. So it's not a bad thing to have 2 separate parties. You need the check and the balance. It's a bad thing to have one party. That's bad. But when you have two parties, you have another party there to check the other.
Tell our listening audience out there why you think it's a bad idea just to have one party, because I was actually about to go into that.
Alabama would be a great example of the one-party system under the Democrats. The Alabama State Constitution of 1901. Now, I won't go into the specifics, but the nature of that Constitution was created. The nature of it is created and intended to keep a certain specific group of people at a disadvantage for a smaller group of people. In this case, the aristocracy. And this does go back on race. This is where your Jim Crow laws and all those things came into place, segregation. This Constitution favored that by creating a central government. It's centralized in Montgomery, Alabama.